start the show this week for our Week 5 preview here on College Football Tailgate, I want to bring everybody back to high school English class. I'm pretty sure everyone across the country had to read Animal Farm. John, you with me still? Did you have to read Animal Farm?
I gotcha.
All right, so in Animal Farm, there's that motto there when the pigs take over the farm that all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Well, I like to think in an alternate universe that there's a college football version of Animal Farm, and their slogan is, all Saturdays are equal, but some Saturdays are more equal than others. And I want to pull that in here to this week, to our world, because my goodness, what a slate we have on this Week 5. I'm Dan Watkins. John McKechnie is with me. College Football Tailgate is the show name, as I mentioned. John, this is just glorious. We've been talking about this one, since the summer. Holy crap. It is, everywhere you look, just marquee matchups across the board.
The stars have really aligned for us, and first off, kudos to you for that reference. That was pretty strong there. But we had some of these games circled, like you said, back in the summer, and some other ones have kind of gained intrigue as the season's unfolded. I think for me, Ohio State Washington has become a lot more interesting with how Washington has looked, and we got to see what Ohio State's got against another quality opponent after obviously taking care of business against Texas. And every window has some absolute haymakers in it, and I cannot wait for Saturday.
Oh, man, it's going to be awesome. So let's just kind of get right into it. And as we look at this slate, we got games in the SEC like Ole Miss, LSU, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi State, Tennessee. We got games like Notre Dame going down to play Arkansas as well. Oregon, Penn State, the whiteout. A lot of pressure spots, I think, across the country. But what I wanted to kick around here as we start the show is that the thought that popped into my head is, which head coach needs a win the most this weekend? Now, obviously, going into this week, it's only week 4. A lot of these teams, 12 teams going to get into the playoff. You're not going to completely lose your season, except if you're like Notre Dame and drop to 1-3. But still, which coach needs a win the most this weekend?
I think it's James Franklin. I think like you said, there are with the expanded playoff, a little bit less stakes in a single game as far as your chances of getting into the college football playoff. But Penn State is kind of transcending that. I think that the baseline expectation is that they're going to be in the CFP this year. But the question is always, can Franklin win the big game when he needs to? I think it's a little bit harsh grading, but at the same time, their 2 wins in the college football playoff were against SMU and Boise State. So, even though they got the quote-unquote playoff wins and everything, I don't think that they have beaten a team that's truly equal to them in a big spot. So Franklin really needs this one. There's no better setup for this Penn State team, right? It's at home. It's the whiteout game. That is one of the most raucous, if not the most raucous environments in college football. It's going to be going nuts. You got Oregon traveling multiple time zones away to get there, long road trip for them. So everything sets up for this Penn State team. Can they actually get it done? I think Franklin, huge pressure spot for him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is a massive reputation game for James Franklin Saturday night. 2-20 versus AP top 6 teams in his career as a head coach. I think it's 2-18 at Penn State or something like that, but still, this year is supposed to be different in Happy Valley, right? This year they pushed all their chips into the middle. They brought back the majority of that team from a year ago. They feel like they've kind of loaded up, just like they are. Obviously, they're undefeated, but it just feels like they haven't kicked into that next gear yet. And maybe they've been saving some stuff for this week, but this is the year that's supposed to be different. And like I said, just a huge reputation game for James Franklin. It's one of those, you got to go out there and prove it. Because you're not going to have many other chances. Yes, you have the Ohio State game, but other than those 2 games, the Oregon game this weekend and Ohio State towards the end of the year, people's opinion is not going to change much against Penn State, and it's just a huge reputation spot, I think, for James Franklin and this program.
Yeah, has to get done, because I think the expectation right now is that they're going to lose to Ohio State when that time comes. So it's you got to get this quality win right now. You're never going to be in a better spot to do it than right now this particular week. So for me, Franklin really targeted on his back, and then the other one would probably be Kalen DeBoer.
Right.
I think in a weird sense, I think there's a decent amount of pressure on Kirby Smart too, because if there's one sort of Achilles heel that he has on his coaching resume, it has been lack of good performances and results against the Crimson Tide, save for that one game. So, but back to DeBoer, the 4 losses that Alabama has incurred since he took over, all of them have been on the road. They've looked like a different team on the road largely during his tenure. I mean, that Florida State game, you're 14.5-point favorites. You lose by 14 points in that game against the Noles. They've looked better since then, although we can kind of like degrade the win against Wisconsin just a little bit, maybe not as quality of a opponent as we thought. But DeBoer needs to show that he can take this show on the road, and I think going into Athens, it's the Lions' Den. Georgia hasn't lost there since 2019. This is a spot where Alabama can kind of reclaim its status that I think it's been kind of searching for since Saban left.
Absolutely, and I'll throw another kind of sneaky one at you too. How about Josh Heupel in Tennessee, going down to Starkville? And I got more on Starkville in a minute here because that has kind of become our bread and butter. Those are our people down there in Mississippi. But Tennessee, the way the wheels kind of just fell off against Georgia, you don't really learn much against UAB from a week ago. This week, going on the road, their first road test this year to see if this Aguilar experiment is really the way that they should be going, if Joey Aguilar can handle some big road spots in the SEC. I'm really interested to see how Tennessee comes out on Saturday afternoon against Mississippi State, and just to see if Tennessee really is better than we thought they were going to be. I'm someone with an under 8.5 win ticket with Tennessee, so this could be a big swing spot here this weekend for me if I'm going to cash that under later on this season.
Different quarterback, different team, and everything like that, but similar setup to going down to Arkansas last year. Just weird stuff can happen in Starkville. So Tennessee, they absolutely need to prove it. This is I think the line tells us a lot, because I think perception-wise, you would kind of think Tennessee rolls in this spot, even with Miss State being undefeated so far. But there's a lot of respect in Vegas's number right now shown towards Miss State.
Absolutely. And so for those of you that are new to our show, thank you very much for watching. I think we might have picked up a few of the fine folks from Starkville to come check out our show after we had a very nice video promoting what's going on away from campus after this game here at the Pony. But John, you went live on TikTok with the general manager of the Pony on our TikTok page at CFB Tailgate. So you want to tell the people a little bit about what's going on down there?
So to reiterate, if you've been living under a rock, there is a biscuits and gravy wrestling event at the Pony in Starkville is the address. So we're sticking with that. Some people, maybe 100 people, would quibble and say that it's in West Point, Mississippi, but it's in the Golden Triangle, folks. It's all good. And the lovely people of the Pony were gracious enough to bring us on last night. So I'm talking to Heaven, the GM, the house mom there at the Pony, and let's see, we had London in there, we had Polly Pocket in there, just a who's who of wrestlers. And
what a round table.
It was tremendous, and we got into the biscuits and gravy of it all. I pitched some finishing move ideas, the gravy train being one of them.
Nice.
The bomb biscuit. I wanted to do something with roux, but I couldn't quite figure that one out. But I think that now we have some potential WWE style finishing moves that are going to be put on display there at the Pony this weekend, and big thanks to them, and I'm excited to hear back on how that all goes.
That's fantastic. I can't wait either. Hopefully we get some clips from that little excursion that you had on TikTok last night. You can find us on TikTok at CFB Tailgate. We're on Twitter, excuse me, a little bit of a slip of the tongue there, on Twitter at CFB Tailgate 25. And of course, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, at College Football Tailgate, where you can find our whole show. Please, if you'd be so kind, if you are checking out our show, to hit that like button, hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. All it does is help us as we try to grow this show. And by the way, I can see that some of you out there are listening and not hitting that button. So please do us a favor. Hit that subscribe, follow, like button if you would be so kind. All right, so what we tend to do here on our Thursday shows as we preview the week ahead is we try to predict some headlines, right? What are we going to be talking about on Sunday morning, Monday morning when you get back to work, John? What are the headlines going to be when week 5 of college football is in the books?
So my first one is Franklin Ducks big win again. And that is to say that Oregon is going to get this done in Happy Valley. They're going to go into the belly of the beast, the lion's den, and they are going to win. And that big win is going to elude James Franklin once again. And the fans are just going to wonder if there's this concrete ceiling above this Penn State program as long as James Franklin is there. So this is a huge spot. When we were talking about the Big Ten generally in this game over the summer, I thought that this was a huge inflection point for both of these teams. And Oregon has, I think, eye test-wise, looked significantly better this year than Penn State, in my opinion. And again, Penn State hasn't really gotten a huge opportunity to prove it, but I think that Oregon is the better team right now, and I think that they're going to be able to get this done. So Franklin Ducks, big win is my first headline. My next one, the Dogs, roll tide. I think that Georgia does ultimately get this done, gets the monkey off their back, solves their Alabama problem, at least for this season. I think that we'll break it down a little bit further, but I think that there are some elements to Georgia's team that I think are bad matchups for Alabama, and I think there's cases to make vice versa, but I think ultimately Georgia at home at night is a really tough place for a team like Alabama that struggles on the road to get it done. And then last one, all aboard the Lane train. I love
Nice.
Ole Miss this weekend, and we're going to break that down a little bit further as well. But I think that this is a really good setup for Ole Miss to kind of make a statement against LSU.
That would be a lot of fun. Just there's been some great off the field stuff too in that matchup that we'll get to in a little bit. For me, I got 3 as well. Going to start off right in the same spot, John. Let's go. Franklin falls flat again. I just can't trust James Franklin in a spot like this until he proves otherwise. Until he shows me otherwise, and I can't trust Drew Aller either. I think Drew Aller is going to probably cost them this game Saturday night. It would not surprise me if he has a big turnover here. And we're going to break down a little bit more about Aller coming up in just a few minutes. But I like Oregon in this game. I think Dan Lanning is just on a mission this year, at least in the regular season, just to kind of just steamroll everything he possibly can. So James Franklin, as I mentioned, 2-20 all time against AP top 6 teams. I think that drops to 2-21 this weekend. How about Fayetteville fireworks? We're going to get a lot of points in this Notre Dame Arkansas game Saturday. High noon, 11 a.m. local kick. These two defenses, something smells bad between these two defenses, and you got two offenses that can pretty much score at will. So I think we're going to get points there in that matchup between Notre Dame and Arkansas. And then finally, I'll play to our crowd. Starkville Shocker. Mississippi State, I think, is going to hang around in this game and possibly even pull off the upset here. I think this sets up nicely for Blake Shapen in this offense to be able to put some points and just be a real prickly thorn in the side of Tennessee here on Saturday afternoon. This Tennessee defense still a little banged up. They're still without those top 2 cornerbacks here. And Blake Shapen can ball. We've seen that so far this season. So I like I like a little Starkville Shocker going on in the daylight, and then I'm sure there's going to be plenty of Starkville Shockers going on afterwards at that Fine Biscuits and Gravy wrestling event. All right, very good. Moving on. Let's start breaking down some of these games. I mean, we have so many ways to go, but let's start right off, John, with the game that I know you're going to be most locked in on, and that's Alabama at Georgia. Right now, the Dogs favored by 3.5, depending on where you're looking. The total sitting at 52.5. All I know is that every time these two teams meet, it's fantastic television. Like, you cannot switch away. Do not switch away. It is just awesome to watch, back and forth usually. We got a 33-game home winning streak on the line for Georgia. On the other side, Alabama's won 9 out of the last 10 matchups between these two teams. We know what that one loss was in the national championship game. Last year, the game was nuts. 41-34 the final. We had the big lead by Alabama. Georgia comes roaring all the way back, and then Alabama takes the lead. And ends up winning that game in Tuscaloosa. But this game is not in Tuscaloosa. It is in Athens, John. And as you have pointed out, Kalen DeBoer just 2-4 on the road as the head coach of Alabama. So break this down for us. What are you expecting? What are you looking for Saturday night?
All right, so I'll start with what the computers are saying. SP Plus has Alabama winning 27-26. FEI has Georgia winning 29-26. So bear those scores in mind for your betting total interest. The FPI actually has Alabama as the number 3 team in the country, right ahead of UGA at 4. Just kind of looking at the unit by unit stuff here. Alabama, of course, rates really well on their explosives on offense. Georgia has largely been good, at least on balance, at limiting those, but that was certainly not really the case against Tennessee. You know, there were some serious breakdowns as far as their secondary goes. I think that they're basically how I view this game, as succinctly as I can put it, is Bama is going to just pepper the air. Like, they are going to go to Ryan Williams deep. They're going to go to Jeremy Bernard deep. Like, I think their first drive, I think maybe even their first play, they're going to take a shot. They're going to test these Georgia corners. And I think if Alabama is able to land a couple of those shots and kind of take the air out of the stadium, because the Georgia people are very mentally fragile when it comes to Alabama. If they start doing anything, I think it's going to get awfully quiet in a building that holds 95,000 people. So
Are you going?
I am not. I actually, that our listeners will laugh at me for this one. We are a college football podcast. I don't think we've made our official statement on fall weddings. I'm going to a wedding this weekend. Luckily, the ceremony's at 4 Eastern. Game's at 7:30, so everyone will be dancing, and I'll just be like on my phone looking at the game. So it is what it is.
Either happy dancing or sad dancing, one of the two.
Are those happy tissues or sad tissues? But yeah, ultimately, I think Alabama's ability or inability to hit the kill shots is going to dictate this game. I think Georgia is going to be able to run the ball on Alabama. I think that Gunnar Stockton showed a lot as a scrambler and as a kind of just a baller. They really opened up the offense against Tennessee when they had to. So I think that Georgia can punch back offensively, but it all comes down to how effective Jeremy and Ryan Williams are, and if the Georgia pass rush can actually not just get to Simpson, but actually bring him down. Because I think one of the impressive things that I've noticed about Simpson thus far, he might not be like the best straight ahead runner or anything, but he's really slippery in the pocket, really hard to get to the ground. So there's some chances that he can extend plays and hit a deep shot on a broken play. Ultimately, I think the deep shots miss just enough for Alabama to ultimately let this one slip away, and I think Georgia wins in a very close game that is going to have me. I will have a full gray head of hair when we are recording next week.
Very good. What I'm looking at in this one, and the big question for me is, will that Gunnar Stockton performance from Tennessee carry over to this game on Saturday against Alabama? Like, going into this season, I remember you saying how you had a lot of questions about Stockton, if he really was the guy, and more so those questions about really the arm talent with him and if he could make plays through the air. Well, he did that against Tennessee. Can he do this against an Alabama team? I think that's going to be a key in this one. On the other side, Ty Simpson's put up some really good numbers so far. Alabama's running game has been non-existent, but it appears that they are finally going to get Jam Miller back this week. What's he going to look like in this matchup? How much of a workload will he have here in his first game back? And then the other thing, too, I'm sure this scares you a little bit. Like, Ryan Williams, since that game against Georgia last year, had been kind of quiet and really not done much. He just had his first 100-yard game this past week against Wisconsin since that Georgia game a year ago. If he's finally going again and he's looking like that five-star recruit, that guy that literally floated in midair against Georgia a year ago, that's got to scare you a lot. And I'm also looking at these two pass rushes too. They're not getting much pressure. Neither one of these teams. I think both Simpson and Stockton are going to have time to throw, and that leads me to thinking that we're going to get a lot of points in this matchup. I really like the over here in this game if I'm looking for something to bet at 52.5.
Yeah, that's probably the way. I think both of the implied totals from FEI and from SP Plus point you in that direction. I think that we could creep into the 60s here pretty easily.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me one bit. So what is you said Georgia in a close one, so you would take the points with Alabama if you had to make a pick?
Let's see. Yeah, if what's the line currently? Is it still Georgia 3.5 or has it come down?
I think there are a few threes out there, but yeah, there's some 3.5s as well. It depends on the book.
Yeah, if I can get 3 and a hook with Alabama, that's the way that I'm going with it.
Very good. So, yeah, like I said, my play in this one, just a little preview to our betting segment at the end, I am going to be taking the over. I have taken the over. I'm going over 52.5 between these two teams. All right, moving on. Let's head up to Big Ten country, Happy Valley. It's the whiteout Saturday night. Oregon comes to town. They travel across the country. Oregon at Penn State. This one is... Oof, man, this is a reputation game for James Franklin if there ever is one, like we were talking about. Franklin 2-20 against AP top 6 teams all time. Oregon comes into this one. Penn State favored by 3.5, depending on where you're looking. Again, I think it's at 3.5 now pretty much across the board. The over-under sitting at 51.5. John, a little note about the whiteout, by the way. Penn State has won 6 straight whiteout games, but none of them have been against a top 10 opponent. So just breaking down these teams a little bit, Penn State comes into this one 3-0 with wins over Cupcakes, but I'm really hesitant to say that they're rolling. So something's looked a little off here in each of these 3 wins, even though they are winning by such huge margins just because they are that much more talented. Especially Drew Aller, the completion percentage against some of these teams should be much higher than in the mid-50s. I'm sorry, to just be a slave to the box score and the stats and all that, but Aller should be putting up better numbers against some of these schools. Maybe they've just been holding some stuff back because they knew this Oregon game was coming up at the end of the month and they were going to have a full 3-game ramp up for that. And then on the other side, Oregon's 4-0. They look much sharper right now than this Penn State team. It feels like Oregon's just firing on all cylinders. Really fascinated to see how Dante Moore handles this environment on the road. He is looking like that guy that was that big-time recruit a few years ago for UCLA before he transferred up. But first real test here for both of these teams. What do you expect in this matchup?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is truly a heavyweight bout. I think you could argue more so even than Georgia-Alabama, even though this one lacks the same type of history that the other one does. According to FEI, these are the top 2 teams in net points per drive. Oregon number 2 in offensive points per drive and 3rd in defensive. Penn State lags a little bit behind offensively, as we probably could have predicted at 15, but they are number 1 in points per drive allowed. So, I mean, that defense has been lights out, but again, the caveat being that they've, the resume is basically non-existent. On the Aller front, this Twitter account, the Tailgate Tent, no relation to us, but a good account nonetheless, took the microscope to Drew Aller. Drew Aller against, quote, teams with a pulse in his career. Ohio State in 23, 18 for 42. Michigan in 23, 10 for 23. Against Ole Miss, 19 for 39. Ohio State the following year, 12 of 20. Oregon, 20 for 39 last year, 13 for 22 against SMU, 13 for 25 against Boise State, 12 for 23 with 5.9 yards per attempt against Notre Dame last year. So he's kind of pulled the disappearing act in big games himself. It's not just James Franklin. And, when you're a guy like Aller, you're this seasoned, I think it's time for him to change his own narrative as well, because that's some pretty strong evidence against how he's able to perform and rise to the occasion, at least thus far.
Yeah, it's really interesting because as much as I have questions about Drew Aller, I still have these questions about Dante Moore too. It's not like Oregon's played this murderer's row of defenses and Moore's just looked stellar against them. Oklahoma State, we've seen, is just, they're not very good. They might not even be FBS level right now with how they're looking. They just fired Mike Gundy, parted ways with Mike Gundy this past week. And then Oregon State, kind of similar situation. That defense is not very good either. So, and now we know this Penn State's defense is really good. And I'm wondering here as I kind of look at, look for your X factors or so on in this game. How about Jim Knowles, defensive coordinator for Penn State, who, really put the clamps down on that Oregon offense in the Rose Bowl as Ohio State just steamrolled them out there in Pasadena. I know it's a different quarterback, right? It's not Dylan Gabriel anymore. They've lost a lot of those pieces from a year ago. It's Dante Moore's show now, but Jim Knowles should be able to figure out how to put some clamps down and rein in this offense a little bit. So I'm looking at him here, and it's really tough to try to figure out which quarterback. I expect this game to be close. Which one do I trust more to come through in the end? And I'm really struggling with that question here. But I guess just because I'm so down on Aller in these spots that I got to lean Dante Moore just by process of elimination.
I think I'm with you there. I think that Moore has really exceeded my expectations. I think one of my preseason takes that is aging the poorest is doubting this Oregon team. They've really been able to reload on the fly, and they look really good so far. And I think that they will be able to go in there. And I do think that there is like that pressure element on Penn State. Like, you are at home, like you have all this narrative about how you can't win the big one. I think that, especially if Oregon starts fast, this could get pretty sideways for Penn State, I feel like.
Yeah, so we have Penn State favored by 3.5 here, total 51.5. Do you want to make an official pick on this one?
I will take Oregon money line. I think Oregon's going to win this one. There it is.
Very good. Yeah, I'll take the 3.5 with Oregon. Like, it's like you got to like prove me wrong, James Franklin. Prove everybody wrong. Prove the entire country wrong that you can actually show up in a spot like this when you're facing equal competition. So, yeah, Oregon plus 3.5 is going to be on my card this week.
There we go.
All right, very good. Let's move on. Let's head back down to the SEC in one that is just going to be a lot of fun, I think, and all different shapes and sizes and all kinds of sorts, and off the field, on the internet, whatever you want to call it. And I'm talking about LSU at Ole Miss. The Rebs favored by 1.5 at home here. 54.5 is your total. Been a really weird month for LSU coming into this game. Yes, they're 4-0, but it feels like that 4-0 like no one really cares about anymore because Clemson has just fallen off the map. And same thing with Florida, where all those vibes from 3-4 weeks ago where it's like, ooh, okay, maybe LSU's the best team in the country. Feels like that talk has completely gone away. And then on the other side, you got Ole Miss, who is also 4-0. They're holding on for wins against Kentucky and Arkansas the past few weeks. And then they took a mallet to Tulane last week and just absolutely crushed the Green Wave there. Trinidad Chambliss is going to start this game. We know Nussmeier's a little banged up on the other side. Austin Simmons is available, as I put that in air quotes. But, John, for me in this one, I'm looking at one guy, and I have one guy circled, and that's Caden Durham. Can LSU run the football on Saturday? That's my big question. I think that's going to dictate this game.
Right, because Ole Miss had kind of shown some cracks on the run defense. I think like the guys that are really into the advanced metrics are kind of puzzled by the results for Ole Miss's defense because like their yards per carry allowed and like explosives are like really concerning, but like their success rate, like usually like teams are kind of running into a brick wall a lot of the time, but like occasionally they're just going to break off these big runs. So that therein lies Durham's path potentially to hitting a home run or really kind of getting things going to where LSU is able to lean on this Ole Miss defense. But my sense, and I just can't escape it, I just think that Ole Miss is going to do this one and make a bit of a statement here. And I know that like the bloom's off the rose of LSU's win at Clemson and everything. I'm not trying to like overcorrect for that. I'm more so just convinced that this Ole Miss team is kind of a machine. I think offensively they're so multiple, they're so dangerous. I think that this LSU defense is going to be a really good test for them. But I think Trinidad Chambliss and company are going to be able to pass that particular test. They're so loaded at wide receiver and at tight end as well, and Trinidad can kind of make plays with his legs as well. So I feel like this is going to be that statement game for Ole Miss, sort of akin to their statement win against Georgia last year, where it's like, okay, like this isn't just your Monty Kiffin's Kiffin team. This is a real legitimate contender.
Yeah, and I think as I go back to this Durham point too, like another angle of this is that LSU can't be asking Garrett Nussmeier to do everything. Like I think he's might be a little more banged up than what they're letting on there. He's got that oblique injury going on. I do think LSU is going to be able to score. I think Ole Miss is going to be able to score. I mean, whenever these two teams match up, usually we do get some pretty high point totals on the board there. And as Lane Kiffin even said himself this week to take the over after Whit Weeks, LSU's star quarterback, and Landry Kiffin, Lane's daughter, announced that they are dating. So actually, I got to ask you, though, how does that announcement impact your handicapping of this game?
I think I've done a lot of thinking on this one. We just sort of reported it on our TikTok, but no real spin on it. But I think as the week goes on, I feel like this is more of a psychological warfare from the Kiffin brigade on LSU. Do I think necessarily that Landry Kiffin's going to like dump him on Friday night? Not necessarily. I think that'd be too quick after hard launching on Instagram. I mean, you can't just call it quits after 1 week like that. But I do wonder if it's going to be in old Witt's head a little bit, and he's such a key part of that LSU defense. I feel like this is Lane, the puppet master, pulling some strings.
It could be. It absolutely could be. All right, so we got Ole Miss minus 1.5 here. Total sitting at 54.5. A couple notes for you guys. The home team in this matchup has won the last 5 games, covered the last 7, and also 11 of the last 12 against the spread too here. You already said that you love Ole Miss in this one, but it sounds like you're going a little extra crazy with how much you like Ole Miss.
Yeah, I'm going to take an alt line on Ole Miss. I got them covering 6.5 here, which you can get at plus 164, I believe, over at DraftKings.
Very good. Yeah, I like Ole Miss minus 1.5 here. I probably would just go down to the money line for me personally. But I think Chambliss's running ability is going to be the X factor in this game for Ole Miss. If he can escape these linebackers and get away from Perkins and Weeks and the other Weeks as well, that I do think that sets up really nicely for Ole Miss. This place is going to be rocking. And yeah, I think this just, I don't know. I don't have a great feeling about this LSU offense right now to trust them in this spot where I do think Ole Miss is going to be able to get theirs.
Yeah, I think that Durham point and just like Nuss maybe being a little bit overexposed, I think those are really like huge points of contention to watch out for in this game.
Absolutely. So another game that the point total is very high, it might be the highest on the board, is Notre Dame at Arkansas. The total there is at 64.5. The Irish are down to just a 4.5 point favorite in this one, John. As we know, we've talked about at length on this show that the Notre Dame defense is not good right now. And there's a lot of finger pointing at Chris Ash, their defensive coordinator. Marcus Freeman said their defensive meeting on Sunday was, quote, not comfortable. And he didn't want it to be comfortable. He pretty much said no, there is no chance that he is taking over play calling. He's kind of just looking more at the film and saying that they're not executing right now out on the field there. The game plan is solid, but something's happening on the field that's just it's not good right now. I think this game sets up really well for both of these offenses just because these defenses have been disaster. Notre Dame should feed their 2 running backs in this one, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price. Arkansas, 87th against the run, allowing over 4 yards per carry. Memphis ripped off over 7 yards per carry on them last week here. But at the same time, we have 2 teams that feel like they are backed into a corner. Notre Dame, we know they got to win out if they want to make the playoff. Arkansas really kind of needs a win here if they want to keep this thing even semi on the rails. So what are you looking at in this matchup?
Yeah, I think it's well said on the Notre Dame defensive front. Like they just whatever, if it's game plan or execution, whatever it is, it's not working so far. And going to Arkansas to try to figure it out is tough because I think that this Arkansas offense is really dangerous with Taylor Green and Mike Washington, Omega Blake, just some real playmakers out there. So yeah, I think we're going to get a sort of back and forth shootout. I think ultimately Notre Dame's talent is going to prevail here. I think that Notre Dame wins this one close. Like you said, it's down to 4. This was at 6.5 earlier this week. SP Plus actually has Arkansas winning this game by 2 points. So that's something to bear in mind. But I am going to keep my faith in the Irish. And also, as much as I enjoy Arkansas, I'm not a huge believer in their ability to win these type of games. I think that it's going to ultimately look like that Ole Miss game where it's like they put a scare into them. They hung with them, not quite at that point where they can win those type of games, though.
Yeah, that really kind of just goes hand in hand with this trend here that I was about to read. Since 2020, so really in the Sam Pittman era, Arkansas is just 6-24 against ranked opponents, but they're 18-12 against the spread in those games. So interesting spot there. This game for me as a Notre Dame fan is going to go a long way towards that feeling in my stomach. Will it amplify that just awful, anxious feeling that I have going on with this defense, or will it ease it and basically be like a Pepto-Bismol kind of game for me? Because, Taylor Green has been getting his this season, and I think there's a good chance he does again here on Saturday. He has over 360 total yards or more in all 4 games this year. Arkansas, this is a great stat. Arkansas has over 1,000 yards of total offense the past 2 weeks combined, but they're 0-2.
Right.
Which is just tough. Like I said, I expect big games here from Love and Price. CJ Carr, I think, is going to be fine. I think they'll be able to put up some numbers too. If I'm looking to play this game, honestly, I think I'd look at Notre Dame's team total at 34.5. That'd probably be the way I go, because I do think at some point Notre Dame's going to figure out how to get some stops, and Arkansas does have some turnover issues as well. So if they can force some turnovers here, this game could be a little more lopsided than it actually looks when you look at the box score.
Yeah, I think we could run into a situation where Notre Dame is doing a really good job of playing keep away, basically, like having some long, sustained drives, and then that sort of ups the urgency for this Arkansas team because they know that the clock is running. There are fewer possessions. They really got to go make it happen. And when you're under that type of pressure, that's where mistakes can happen. So ultimately, I could see Notre Dame really kind of controlling clock in this game and just really kind of imposing their will that way. Ultimately, I do think that Arkansas is going to have some great drives in there and be able to put up points, but ultimately over the course of 60 minutes, I think we come away satisfied that the Notre Dame the superior side.
Very good. All right, moving on. Let's do one more full game breakdown, then we can kind of quick hit some of these other ones that are on the board here across the country. Tennessee at Mississippi State, the first road game for Tennessee this season. It's their first trip to Starkville since 2012. On the other side, you got Mississippi State, who's 4-0 for the first time since 2014, that Dak Prescott season. What a fascinating game here, as Tennessee is favored by just 7.5 at this point. The total sitting at 63.5. I got questions about the quarterbacks here in this one. Joey Aguilar, what do we expect from him with Tennessee with his first road start? We had talked about in the offseason that turnovers can be an issue for Aguilar. He does have 3 in the past 2 games, all interceptions there. This Mississippi State pass defense, I do think, could maybe cause some fits for Aguilar here in this one. And then Blake Shapen on the other side, with Tennessee still having some missing pieces in that secondary, he could have a big day and help Mississippi State stay in there. So where are you going? What are you looking at in this game?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the quarterbacks here, like you were saying. I think this is a huge test for Aguilar. It's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy in Starkville. The cowbells are going to be going nuts. I think that we see this line 7.5 at some shops, 8.5 at others. I think that Miss State keeps this one close. I do think that they're going to be able to cover this spread against Tennessee. I'm not quite going so far as to pick them to win outright. I think that Tennessee, the talent is going to prevail, and their ability to have that quick strike offense, I think, is going to be something that works in their favor in this one. So I got Tennessee winning this one close. It's going to be an uncomfortable. We're going to get some really great Josh Heupel looking really dejected, I think, moments in this game, but ultimately he will have his little Bobby Hill smile.
Yeah, so ESPN points out a great stat here. Tennessee is 103rd in the FBS in red zone defense, allowing opponents to score on over 92% of their trips to the red zone. Mississippi State has the number 1 red zone offense in the country, scoring on 100% of opportunities so far this season. So if Mississippi State can move the ball here, they're going to put up points, and that's why I really like Mississippi State plus 7.5 here, getting them at over a touchdown at home. My issues with Mississippi State, though, and my concerns as I go to place this bet. One is penalties. They're the most penalized team, I believe, in the country.
Oof.
They rank 134th in the FBS. I believe there's just 134 teams in the FBS. So 89 penalty yards per game on average. That's an issue. And then their run defense, too. They're allowing over 216 yards per game. It's not like Tennessee has shown that they can run the ball. They're willing to run the ball here and maybe take a little bit off of Aguilar's plate. That run defense for Mississippi State is a real question mark for me, because what if Tennessee just tries to play keep away like you were talking about with Notre Dame against Arkansas, that maybe Mississippi State can't get off the field because they can't stop the run and they keep making stupid penalties. Like those are 2 really bad situations there for Mississippi State.
Yeah, those kind of continue to steer you in the direction of the Vols ultimately winning this game. So by that logic, Star Thomas is going to be a guy to circle and listen out for on Saturday, because he's the key to that Tennessee run game.
And then my last point, though, and I know you shouldn't cross games and all that kind of stuff, but I am going to in this case just because I do think there's a good case to be made here. If Mississippi State can make Sam Leavitt look terrible, I think they can frustrate Joey Aguilar.
I think that's fair.
But that's me.
I think that's absolutely, this we'd kind of just forgotten about Miss State. They'd kind of faded into the background, and I liked the Levy hire and everything, but last year was so kind of off the rails. Shapen gets hurt against Florida, doesn't play the rest of the season. They lose Mario Craver in the transfer portal. It's like, what do they really have this year? But it's really kind of taken hold. They're going to be tough. Like, this is definitely a no joke spot for Tennessee. They have to absolutely take care of business, but I think ultimately they will be able to.
All right, very good. So we'll get to our best bets for the weekend and our betting card in a few minutes here, but we do have some other games. There's just so many games this weekend that are just incredible. We can't go full on in depth on all of them, but I do want to just do a couple quick hitters here, John. Ohio State's at Washington. That line's been coming down. I think it's down to 8 now. It was around 10 when it opened. USC across the country, they're taking on Illinois. Lincoln Riley his teams have been terrible traveling across the country when it comes to covering the number. They're favored by almost a touchdown. Illinois just got dragged across the turf last week by Indiana. Indiana, 7.5-point favorites at Iowa. Like, is that a trappy spot? Auburn A&M, TCU, Arizona State. Like, where else around the country do you want to kind of steer our ship here?
Oh man, I mean this is a tremendous undercard. We had so many A-listers to go through.
These
our
are all
breakdowns.
games on another week that we would be dedicating full 5 to 10 minute breakdowns on the show to.
100%. Illinois, can they get off the deck? I think is my big thing. USC coming across the country, I think, is a good spot for Illinois to kind of flush last week and get their perception turned back around. I really don't know what to do with this Auburn A&M game. I was optimistic about A&M coming into the season. They've obviously looked good so far, but I've yet to dive in with both feet on them. I think Auburn's going to.
I just think this is a brutal spot for Auburn scheduling wise. After at Oklahoma last week, now you get A&M in College Station off of a bye. Like, that's just less than a touchdown. I was looking at A&M. I have not moved on that yet.
Okay, and then I think TCU. They got Eric McAllister on track last week. He was, kind of like their circled as their big receiver coming into the year. Quiet for first couple of games, but he was massive last week for TCU in that game. And I think that TCU is very good chance of winning outright against Arizona State. And then I'll mention the Indiana Iowa game. My thoughts on it here in a moment. But yeah, this is an awesome kind of undercard this week too.
Yeah, that Arizona State TCU game's Friday night, by the way. Great little kickoff to the weekend to get you going out there in the Pac-12. I saw TCU really hyping up the Josh Hoover stuff, that he's the number one passer right now in college football. Arizona State, I think the defense did enough. Obviously, they got the win on the road against Baylor, where that does give me a little more comfort in this one, leaning towards ASU, and it does look like Sam Levitt's starting to get going a little bit here, which is huge. Obviously, they missed Scadaboo so badly, just the heart and soul from a year ago, which, I mean, how could you not? Even though they returned just about everybody else on that offense. I do think we'll get some points in that one. That's definitely an interesting game as well. And then, yeah, I don't know. Is Iowa all of a sudden an offensive school, or was that just Rutgers a week ago?
I'm willing to say it was just Rutgers.
Fair enough. But that's another big test for Mendoza this week, going up against that defense, which that defense can allow some big plays there too. So maybe there are a few shot plays that Indiana hits in that matchup.
I'm thinking so.
All right, very good. All right, let's get to our betting card here for the week, John. Week 5, here we go. Your best bets for Saturday. Let us have it.
All righty, starting us off here, we got Navy Rice over 44.5. Caught a little bit of Rice last week, I think on Thursday night. I feel like they've got some athletes. I feel like they can score some points here. I know that, we got 2 run-heavy teams, so that's why the total is sitting where it is, but I think we got bad defenses, good offenses. I think on a points per drive basis, we're going to be looking good here. So give me the over 44.5. Give me Ole Miss -6.5. Like I mentioned, I really feel like this is a statement win for Ole Miss. Incoming against LSU, you can get that at +164. I got Indiana. I am willing to believe in them. I think that they're sort of this rocket ship right now. I don't think that there's a letdown in them, and certainly not against an Iowa team. That they're going to have their full attention, full respect, everything like that. It is hard to beat Iowa that badly in their building, but I think that Indiana is the kind of team that really can. I love Signetti's ability to just kind of pile on points at the end. Give me Ohio State -8. I know that I'm the line's moving in the other direction, but I think that ultimately some of the stuff that's worked for Washington so far just isn't going to work against this Ohio State defense, which I believe to be the best in the country. So Damon Williams, I think that this is a tough spot for him, and Jonah Coleman, who's been just a huge factor for this Washington team. I think he gets bottled up a little bit. Ohio State's able to get this one done, cover that 8. And then last one, a little funky. Give me Jacksonville State plus 4.5 at Southern Miss. I'm not going to get into all the who's, what's, and where's, but give me the Gamecocks.
All right, very good. You want to get funky? I'll start us off funky. How about Utah State plus 23.5 at Vanderbilt? I think this is a sneaky look-ahead spot for Vandy. They play at Alabama next week. Also, I know they've been really good. They still should not be favored against 24 points, and we've seen this Utah State team be very, very pesky this season. They are 4-0 against the spread, by the way. UCF plus 6.5. I'm backing Scott Frost as they head up to Kansas State. We have banned Kansas State from this show. Now we are just flat out attacking them at this point. So let's take the Knights plus 6.5. Cal plus 6.5 at Boston College. BC should not be favored by a touchdown against anybody. I'm sorry. And Cal just got shut out a week ago. I like backing teams after they were just shut out too to see if they bounce off the floor. How about Ole Miss money line minus 114? The best I could find it there. Just get the win. That's all I care about. It'd be great if you won by a touchdown. We can hit both of these.
Oh yeah.
Tulsa plus 15.5 at home against Tulane. I think that the Golden Hurricane can hang in here by around 2 touchdowns. Mississippi State plus 7.5 is on my card. I like Blake Shapen to keep this game really close. Iowa State minus 6.5 taking on Arizona at home. I think this is a good spot for the Cyclones, who all of a sudden it feels like everybody just forgot about in the Big 12. Right. They are still there, by the way. How about we'll take the over in the Bama-Georgia game. Points galore, I think, are coming in that one with those 2 quarterbacks. I'll go Oregon plus 3.5. And then finally, I'm happy to do this. My Rhode Island Rams plus 7.5 taking on Western Michigan. Bill Connolly has this game as a tie, 22-22 on the SP+. So let's take the 7.5 there with Rhodey, who I believe is number 9 in the FCS right now.
Tremendous. I love that. Let's make the Oregon one a show play. Add that on to
a double
to my ledger. Yes, Oregon plus 3.5. But yeah, let's go Rams, baby. And then last note. One of the darlings of college football is Pudge the Cat over at Bowling Green. He's getting the week off. He's not going with the team against Ohio. That to me is something that I can quantify. I think that's a huge loss for this Bowling Green team going on the road. So bear that in mind if you like Ohio minus 9.5.
So there were a couple other notes that I did want to get to here. Obviously, we've had some movement in the coaching ranks so far this season. We had a couple debut spots, and I know in the NFL, this is always something that bettors tend to run to. Like, usually if you have an interim coach, you're going to be getting a ton of points in their first game, and somehow they just get that, like, rah-rah, like, even sometimes outright win, or at least the team kind of, like, rallies around that coach and just hangs in there. So we got 3 of these spots this weekend, John. UCLA is getting 6.5 at Northwestern. Oklahoma State's getting 21 at home against Baylor, and Virginia Tech's getting 10.5 at NC State. Do any of these spots interest you at all?
It's a little bit more so like based on the opposition. So like I see 6.5 against Northwestern. I'm like, oh, maybe. But then my like shock collar instinct kicked in. It's like, remember who UCLA is. Remember you took UNLV against UCLA earlier this year and were proven correct. UCLA, I think, is they are in dire times. I don't like them in this spot. I think Virginia Tech, similar thing where it's like that. NC State, I know 10.5 is a lot to ask of this NC State team that can kind of struggle defensively, but I don't like any of the dead cat bounces for these particular teams, UCLA, OK State, or Virginia Tech. It could get really ugly for OK State too.
The only one I'm like kind of looking at was that UCLA one, just because one, just like seeing Northwestern favored by a touchdown on anybody just immediately gets my like antenna up. And then 2, like Nico does still have talent, right? Like I know it's looked absolutely terrible, but like they can maybe hang around here. I don't know. I'm not betting it, but those are just a couple of interesting spots. And then the other one, every single North Carolina State game has just been bonkers this year. So like somehow like if we get to the third quarter and like Virginia's like up 27-24, like hanging around there, I'd be like, oh, okay. I mean, that's not that surprising to me. But
no, I hear that. Yeah, just because NC State they screw around too much. Quit screwing around. Sticking in the state of Virginia, but one last game
hit that.
to
Yeah,
mention.
hit this one.
Is it a little weird that Florida State's only a 7-point favorite at UVA?
That's come down too, wasn't it? 8.
I think
It's
so.
It's crossed into a touchdown. That is a little interesting. Definitely a little interesting there.
So there aren't like too many like upset watches because we have so many like good on good matchups this week. But Florida State, I was really gassing them up on Monday's show. They gotta, they can't mess around because Virginia can absolutely, move the ball and score.
Yeah, that's a Friday night game too. So a couple interesting Friday appetizers there between that one and the Big 12 game out there in Tempe. But we will be back on Monday to break it all down for you guys. I mean, my head's already spinning from what we're going to be talking about on Monday. I cannot wait. Enjoy this weekend. It's going to be glorious. This is just marquee matchups all over the place. For John, I'm Dan. This is College Football Tailgate. Hit that follow, subscribe button. Drop us a review as well if you would be so kind. It would mean so much as we continue to build this show. But anyways, guys, enjoy the Week 5.